The Queen's Jewish Link presents the Jewish Living Podcast, the show that examines the many facets of Orthodox Jewish life. Here's your host, Izzo Zwirin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Izzo. You may be surprised to see a new episode drop in your podcast list this morning. That's because we decided to do a very special episode that is not within our regular scheduled podcast, and that is because the 38th World Zionist Congress elections are finishing this coming Wednesday. So we thought it would be a good idea to first of all find out what they are and where you should attempt to send your vote and how you go about doing that. And with me today, I have Elizabeth Berney, who is the Director of Special Projects at the Zionist Organization of America. So Elizabeth, or Liz, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Izzo.
So I just want to, we're not going to be doing a whole big formal introduction to this. That was the introduction. But if you can give me a little bit of a background about you and how you got to be where you are in the ZOA.
Well, I'm an attorney, and I did some volunteer work. I also I'm a musician, and my klezmer group plays at the, has for years volunteered to play at the reception of ZOA's annual gala in November. But I did occasional volunteer work, writing for ZOA for about 10 years, and they asked me to join them full time, which I did a little over 6 years ago.
All right. So what is the World Zionist Congress? What exactly are we voting on?
Okay, the World Zionist Congress was started in 1897 by Theodore Herzl, and ZOA was actually the American representative at the first World Zionist Congress in 1897. And the fundamental purpose of the World Zionist Congress back then, and I believe it should still be today, in a sort of different format, is to assure the legal right, the international legal rights of the Jewish people to Israel, to the Jewish state, and to work against anti-Semitism and boycotts. Actually, there were boycotts back in 1897. So that's, and these are the issues that are of most concern to us today. ZOA was also at the Paris Peace, and along with the World Zionist Organization, we're both at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, which presented the proposals to the international community that established the Jewish people's international legal right to the Jewish state. And of course, this is in addition to our historical and religious rights to Israel.
Okay, so how does not the actual voting, not how do I vote, we'll get to that later, but how does the people who are elected, where do they go? Who are they talking to once they're elected? And I understand that you're voting for slates. So how do the slates work? So let's start with the people who win. Where do they go, and where do they meet, and what do they do?
Okay, the World Zionist Congress now, there's a large Congress that meets once every 5 years, and these elections are once every 5 years, which meets in Jerusalem. There are over 500 delegates. 190 of them are based on the Knesset elections in Israel. So for instance, when you vote for Likud, if you vote for Likud, your vote is not only for the Likud slate to the Knesset, it's also for a Likud slate to the World Zionist Congress. So 190 members of the Congress come from that. 152 members of the Congress come from the United States. That's the second largest group. And they are elected from the slates who are running in the World Zionist Congress here in America. Another 160-something are selected from the rest of the world. In most cases, there are no elections in other countries. There are a few cases they have elections. Often there are only a few delegates from a country that doesn't have a very large Jewish population. So the local federation just decides, or the local groups decide who will go without having to go through an election.
So when they say they decide who will go, where do they go? How often does the Congress meet, and what do they do when they're there?
Okay, nowadays, the World Zionist Congress, the full World Zionist Congress meets once every 5 years. And there's something that I nickname the mini Congress, which meets once a year. It's actually, they call it the Vada Poel, the Working Committee, the Zionist Congress, but it really does the exact same thing as the larger Congress. and it consists, for every 4 delegates that a slate has, it gets 1 delegate to this mini Congress, but it has all the power of the larger Congress. They pass resolutions, programs, at the ZOA slate, which I'm on, slate number 11 in the most recent Congress last year, 1919. Every single pro-Israel resolution and proposed program came from our slate. Or the far left. The far left also had its proposals, and they also get board members because the World Zionist Congress has the right to put board members on Israel's national institutions, including the JNF, KKL, Karen Kayemet Israel. This has been a real. This is one of the big fights because the left got a lot of power. The American left, based on the American left, they got a lot of power in the previous 2 elections, and they used that power to cut off the purchase of the JNF's and KKL's purchases of land over the Green Line, and also purchases in places like the Negev. And this is one of the things that we're fighting to take back, because it is, that's a form of divestment. That's a form of divesting, part of the D in BDS. So the Congress they're really using the Congress against itself. They also put board members in some of the other Israel's other national institutions. So this is very serious business. And if you look at the total budgets of all the institutions over which the World Zionist Congress has an influence, it's about $1 billion a year. So over 5 years, it's $5 billion. And and there's several departments of the World Zionist Organization. The left has obtained control of some of those. Particularly the Diaspora Affairs Department and the Education Department. They're using that for education that criticizes Israel. Criticizes Israel's checkpoints and so on. This is also something that we're extremely concerned about, part of the ZOA coalition, slate number 11. One of the things that we are fighting for is for positive education, positive Zionist and Jewish education, to teach people about the Jewish people's rights, to treat Jewish history that which people should be proud of.
Okay, so I'm just going to cut you off there because you mentioned how dangerous some of the parties on the left, some of the slates on the left, can be if they are voted into power. But my question is a little bit more related to kind of what's going on in American politics right now. If it's so dangerous, why are there a number of slates that are on the right, and why don't they kind of coalesce around one slate to ensure that the left doesn't win, kind of like what the Democratic Party is doing now?
Well, I would like to bring you to every other slate to convince them to do that, because it's something that I think should be done. In fact, our slate includes 27 organizations.
Okay.
It's a great coalition of organizations, and some of the other organizations running the right, we asked them to, please join us. So we have the largest coalition of organizations, and we have Aisha Torah, we have Americans Against Anti-Semitism, Bill Hyken's group, Lori Lowenthal Marcus's group, Z Street, we have Lawfare Project, that's Brooke Goldstein.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. I'm also comparing that to a different slate that has a number of other large, well-known organizations, and I want to focus on that because a lot of my listeners have been advertised to by Slate 4, which does have other large organizations backing them. I want if you can tell me the difference between the platforms on Slate 11 and the platforms on Slate 4 and why yours are better.
I think it's, you have to look at what we've done, what our slate has accomplished. And as I mentioned, our slate was the only slate on the right that put in resolutions. And we had, over 20 of them last year, for very important issues, calling on the Israeli government to exercise sovereignty over the Jordan Valley, calling for only using the names, and these are the success. I'm mentioning the successful ones now. Calling for use, throughout the World Zionist Organization and the entities that it controls, of the terms Judea and Samaria instead of de-Judaized terms such as West Bank, or obviously the false term occupied territories.
Or Palestine.
Yes. um, many, we proposed and led the 2-year battle for a very strong combating BDS resolution and other anti-BDS resolutions at the World Zionist Congress. You just go up and down the line. I mean, the Aliyah is a critical issue for us. We proposed and managed to get through the resolution to prioritize Aliyah of Jews from endangered areas as funding priority number 1, which is really very traditional priority of the World Zionist Congress. The slate number 4 generally will vote with us. We've had a couple of occasions when they didn't, which were very concerning. There was a resolution. Let me take a step backwards and just mention that your vote for the World Zionist Congress also determines your vote at something called the American Zionist Movement, which is the American umbrella organization underneath the World Zionist Congress, and that meets quite regularly.
Okay.
And there are issues that come up with that every week or two. We also lead the battles there. I would say that we are really leading the battle in every front, so I don't want to really, criticize other right-wing slates, but there have been some important occasions when they voted against the right thing. For instance, there was this anti-Semitism when the AZM established its anti-Semitism policy this past summer. The original draft language included a statement that anti-Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism can be manifested as anti-Zionism. And I thought that would be a natural phrase to pass in an by the American Zionist movement. And unfortunately, every slate voted, except for ZOA, the ZOA coalition, and possibly one other, voted against including that language. They voted to take that important language out. And there was an issue on BDS. When people check a box at the in order to vote, one of my proposals, one of ZOA Coalition's proposals, was that that box should also say that they agree with the combating BDS policy of the World Zionist Congress, which is the policy that ZOA had passed and spent 2 years getting through. Unfortunately, in the initial vote for that, Slate 4 voted against us, which I was flabbergasted. I actually went to the head of Slate 4 and I complained about it, and I said, look, and I said, I'll bring it up again. And then the second time he voted for us, but he spoke against it the first time, and he went speaking for it the second time, but he finally voted for it. So I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to.
So I will also point out, just for our listeners, I did reach out to Slate 4 to see if they would be coming on, and we haven't gotten anywhere yet. We're recording this on March 5th, and we are only a handful of days away from.
But in general, they will vote with us. I mean. But there have been a couple of instances that have been concerning, and we're trying to make sure that those don't have. Our slate is working very hard, and telling people in Slate 4, you have to vote with us, and on these important issues, these anti-BDS issues, and so on, and hopefully that'll happen.
Absolutely. One more question about how the voting works before we get to people actually how to do it. The representation in the World Zionist Congress is proportionate to how many votes you get, similar to the Israeli elections for Knesset?
That's absolutely right. So, for instance, there are 152 delegates coming from the United States. So if 100,000 people vote in this election and 10,000 of them vote for the ZOA coalition, we'll get 15 seats.
Okay, so it's proportionate, and there's no minimum like in the Democratic primaries? You have to hit a certain
no, there's no minimum. However, if you don't get enough votes for one seat, you're out.
So the minimum is 1%.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so how can
actually a little less than, slightly less than that, something like 0.8% or something, I think.
Okay, something like that. Yeah. How do people vote? And I understand there's a fee, so if you could explain that as well.
Okay, the people can go online to vote. You can go to our website, and we have a link there, votezoa.org, or you can go straight to the American Zionist Movement runs the election. And you can go to their website, which is zionistelection.org. So either of those two addresses will get you to the voting site, and you put in your information. They've made voting a little easier because there were a lot of problems in the beginning of the election because people got two different codes now. After you put in your basic information, name, address, and so on, you check the box that you agree with the Basic Jerusalem program. You're over 8. You will be 18 by June 30th. You're Jewish, I guess I think you're not voting in the March 2nd Knesset election because that would be double counting because
Right.
Knesset elections are determine the Israeli contingent to the World Zionist Congress. And then you get a PIN code. And this is where some people have a little bit of a problem. You get a PIN code sent to either your email or your text message. You insert the PIN code, you go back onto the website, you insert your PIN code and your address, and then you get a ballot pops up. And hopefully you vote for Slate 11.
And why is there a fee?
Okay, why is there a fee? Well, I guess back in 1897, there was also a fee. They called the Zionist shekel. Nobody knows exactly how much that was, but it goes to the voting company because AZM hires a professional voting company. And they have some other expenses, administrative expenses for running the election, and that's where the money is slated to go to. Amusingly, your readers will get, your listeners will get a kick out of this. We almost hired the same voting company that ran the Iowa caucuses.
That is a happy happenstance that you did not do that.
Although this one has had its problems too.
Okay.
Sometimes votes don't arrive, and we have a helpline set up for people who if they have problems voting. I think it's 347-443-9009, or they can call ZOA and we'll try to help you.
Okay, how much is that fee for people just to know?
Okay, it's $7.50 for people who are over age 25, and 25 and under, it's $5.
So it's a pretty nominal fee. It's not like you're mortgaging a house here for this.
It's nominal. Yeah, I actually think that there's going to be. It was based on the turnout from last time. They divided the costs based on the turnout. I actually think there'll be a little money left over, and one of my proposals is that if any money is left over, that it should be used to lower the fee further next time.
Okay.
In the next election, but that has not been voted on yet and accepted yet by the committee.
All right. Well, hopefully after this election, maybe we can get that for a vote. Do the uncertainty that's going on in the Israel elections affect the World Zionist Congress in any way, other than the fact that they won't have representation right away?
Well, I guess the only way it affects it really is the number of seats that different groups from Israel will have in the World Zionist Congress. For instance, how many seats will Likud have? How many seats will Blue and White have in the World Zionist Congress? But it goes, it's the March 2nd. I understand that the March 2nd election is the one that will determine that.
Okay, great. Let's just do this one more time. Where can people find out more about Slate 11? First of all, what's your organization's website?
Okay, our organization's website is votezoa.org, and you can see our priorities, which are promoting Aliyah, particularly for Jews who are endangered, combating anti-Semitism, combating BDS, promoting love for and respect for Torah and for tradition and for all Jews, United Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty, promoting the rights of the Jewish people to live in Judea and Samaria, and saying no to an Iranian proxy Palestinian state. And that's basically, defend and strengthen and stand with the state of Israel, and strengthen and continue to teach people about Israel's legal rights, and to have positive Jewish and Zionist education. And all those are spelled out, and our actions are, and you can read about that. Also, I do want to mention that we've been endorsed, and this is another difference between us and I guess any other slate. Have been endorsed by Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has called on every American Jew to vote for Slate 11. Virtually every minister, the heads of the communities in Judea and Samaria and Benjamin region, mayors, just an incredible, and several newspapers, Jewish Voice, Jewish Connection, just really incredible. And when I saw the video recorded by Prime Minister Netanyahu endorsing us. I was just so thrilled, and that's and I think it's because of our record of really standing up for Israel very strongly.
Are you guys on social media anywhere?
Oh yeah, we have Facebook. We have we're on social. We're definitely on social media.
Facebook,
we have
Twitter, Instagram. Those are like the big ones.
Yeah, I believe we're on all of those.
Okay.
Myself, I'm not a big social media person, but yeah, we have our social media people who are running that.
Okay, and where do people go to vote one more time?
Okay, they can either go, there's a link on our website, votezoa.org, or they can go to zionistelection.org, which is the AZM website, and that way.
And follow the instructions that were previously laid out earlier in the podcast.
And I'm telling everybody, vote slate 11 by March 11, because March 11 is the deadline.
All right. So on a personal note, just so all of our listeners remember, earlier this week we had on Moshe Hill to talk about NORPAC and what you can do to help Israel advocacy. This is another way that people can have their voice heard in what goes on, and it affects Israel and affects a lot of us in America towards our relationship with Israel. So if you were interested in doing some sort of advocacy work, or you're interested in doing some sort of positive actions that can affect Israel, but you weren't able to go, or you aren't going to be able to go to NORPAC, this is another way that people can have their voice heard when it comes to Israel issues.
By the way, NORPAC's one of the 27 organizations on the ZOA coalition slate.
There you go. All right.
Can I mention a few others? Do you mind if I mention a few
ahead.
others?
You go ahead.
Okay, Students Supporting Israel, which is a just wonderful organization. Americans Against Anti-Semitism, Chovevei Tzion, AFSI, Americans for Safe Israel, I Lead. We have the Syrian community. We have, including the United Mashadi Jewish Community of America. We have a large Russian contingent, and they're one of their several Russian groups, including MIG, Make Israel Great, and they like it was named after the jet. One Israel Fund, which helps supply security equipment throughout Yesha. Save the West, Young Jewish Conservatives, Rabbi Sparrow's organization, National Council of Jewish Affairs, Z Street, American Friends of Likud, and just a phenomenal group.
It's a nice group, a nice slate of people that are endorsing your slate.
Well, they're working. They're part of the slate. They are part of the slate.
Okay.
Leaders are on the slate, and they will go with us. If assuming we're elected, they will go with us, and we're all going to work together for the betterment of the Jewish people and to strengthen Israel. Absolutely.
Liz, thank you so much for joining us and for your help with the World Zionist Organization.
Thank you, Izzo. Really appreciate this interview. Thank you so much.
The Jewish Living Podcast is produced by Swirly Pikus. Our theme song is The Band by A.B. Rottenberg from Journeys 4. You can email the show at jewishlivingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Jewish_living. The Jewish Living Podcast is recorded in conjunction with the Queen's Jewish Link.